Hello and welcome everyone. Today at Eagle Investors, we are looking at how you can evaluate a company presentation. But what is a company presentation? A company presentation can simply be defined as how a company talks about their plan. When evaluating a company, there are three major sections you want to look for. The first is the introduction and the overview section. The second one is the details and financials section, and the third one is the ask and the plan section. The combination of all three of these pieces is what makes a good. All right, section one. Section one is the introduction and overview section. This is arguably the most important piece of your business presentation to get right. The reason is, if it's bad, no one's going to want to listen to the rest of what you have to say. Basically, what you have to do in this section is introduce everything about your company very briefly. This includes things like, what is your product? What does it do? Who are your customers? Why do they want to buy it? And who are you as a team? Let's take each of those pieces individually. First of all, introducing the product or service. Usually having a 1 to 2 sentence description of what your product does is the best, so that people can easily get an understanding of why they should be interested. Second would be your customers, or who is going to buy this from you. You'll often hear this referred to as the target market when people are talking about their projections. The next thing you want to talk about is the team. The reason it's so important to talk about your team, especially in a small business presentation, is because there are very, very few people on it, so all of them count. Now, the reason this matters so much is because when an investor looks at a company, they can have the best idea in the world. If they have a bad team, they aren't going anywhere. The 5 to 7 people who start working at that company first decide whether it's going to be an amazing success or a complete failure, and their skills and talents decide it all. All right, next we have financials and details. The financials and details section is where you really get into the nitty-gritty of how your company runs. In this section, you usually include things like your financial projections, or how much money you think you're going to make or lose over the next several years. This is extremely important because people like accountants always want to see financial projections so they can check to see if they're realistic. Customers. We already talked about customers in section 1, but here's where you get more details. Let's say you already have existing customers, or you have what's called a letter of intent. This is where you can mention that along with other people or specific companies that you are targeting in the future. Competition. It is always important to mention your competition. Generally, if there's a big problem that needs solving, you're not going to be the only person who's doing it. This is why you need to talk about your competition. When talking about competition, there are really 2 big competitors you need to talk about. The first one is what's called the gold standard, and the second one is other competitors who are innovating. The gold standard is what people use right now, or what the industry currently uses that you are improving upon or making better. The competitors to you, then, are people who are also trying to improve on the industry gold standard. You need to show not only why you are better than the gold standard, but why you're better than the other people who are trying to innovate. Now, often when companies are presenting, they will have a competitive slide that looks something like this, where you can see why their company is better than others. If we look at this example, we can see that their solution is not only more convenient than the competitors, it's also less expensive, putting them in the top right, whereas their competitors can't get close to them. Intellectual property. Intellectual property is a very, very important thing to talk about. The reason is, if you have an incredible innovation in your field, large companies can simply copy it, unless it's protected by what's called intellectual property. There are a couple different types of intellectual property, but the important ones for evaluating a company are going to be patents and trade secrets. Patents are legally protected, meaning you file a patent with the US government and no one else is allowed to copy your design for a certain period of years. Trade secrets, on the other hand, are things like the Coca-Cola formula. Things where you don't file for legal protection, but you keep it a secret from everyone else so that no one can quite replicate it. Last, you need to talk about your exit strategy, or how you're planning to make money off of this business. There are 3 different exit strategies. The first one is acquisition. Acquisition is probably the most common type of exit strategy for a small company to have. What this means is a large company like Google or Exxon acquires a smaller company with an interesting technology so that they can make their products better. The second type is continuing growth. What this means is you just run the company like normal, grow it to a large size, sell a lot of product, and make money that way. The third type is the one that no one wants to talk about, and that's bankruptcy or failure. 9 out of every 10 small businesses will fail at some point. So while no one wants to say that this is their exit strategy, it's a large possibility for all of them. Section 3. Section 3 is a very important step because it's where companies talk about how much money they want and what they're going to do with it. You need to include a couple of things in Section 3. The first thing under the Ask and Plan section is how much money your company needs. This is where you tell your investors how much money you want from them. The second section is terms, or what the company is offering in exchange for the money. This is generally a piece of the company called equity, and it's measured as a percentage. Oftentimes, this will become a discussion between the investors and the company as to how much equity the investors will get in exchange for the money that they're giving them. The last piece of the Ask and Plan section is obviously the plan. The plan simply states, what am I going to do with all of this money that I'm asking for? Think about it. If you were an investor and a company asked you for $1 million, wouldn't you want to know what they're going to do with it? Are they using it to build a factory? Are they using it to ship things all over the world? Are they using it to do research and development? It's important to know these kinds of things, so they're in every good presentation. All right, thank you. So today you should have learned about how to evaluate a company presentation through the 3 simple steps of the overview and introduction, the financials and details, and the ask and the plan. You can obviously follow along with the sheet at home where all of these sections are broken down so that you can see them for yourself. And we will see you in the next video. Thank you.